Now I move on to take a look at the NFC South. And when I look at this division, I'll start off with the New Orleans Saints. And thankfully for the Saints organization and their fan base, uh, Bountygate is starting to slowly drift into the rearview mirror. And you had to know heading into 2012 with Bountygate, not having your head coach for the entire season, having players be suspended, and all the drama that was surrounding the organization, you had to know that 2012 was going to be a bit of a lost season for the New Orleans Saints, and in a lot of ways it was. Well, Sean Payton's back. You've still got Drew Brees at the helm at quarterback, so I'm sure Saints fans are going to sit there and be all up in arms about how exciting the 2013 season is for their organization and how much potential they have. It's time to pump the brakes a little bit. This is still, to me, a very one-dimensional ball club in the sense that they are pretty much all offense and very little to absolutely no defense. Very similar to what happened in 2012, frankly. On offense, it all starts with Drew Brees, I think, beyond question. Beyond question. And I thought I would never say this when it comes to the greatest free agent signing of all time. I thought it used to be for years Reggie White, and it was. I thought it was always going to be that way. It's not anymore. Drew Brees is the greatest free agent signing in the history of the NFL, and frankly, Reggie White, doesn't even come that close. I mean, that's how much of an impact Drew Brees has had. That's how much of a face of the organization and franchise he has been. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame someday on the first ballot as a New Orleans Saint. Greatest free agent signing of all time. And he's still the man. He's still the unquestioned face of this franchise and still the unquestioned leader of this team. Brees is phenomenal. I just say this for Saints fans and NFL fans in general. We should have an appreciation for guys like Drew Brees while we can, because he's not going to play forever. But he is something special to watch. He's a lot of fun to watch, the way he runs his offense, the way he works the offense, the way he spreads the ball around, he gets everybody involved, is truly something to behold. And it also helps when you have great weapons in the passing game like Jimmy Graham, who may very well be the best tight end in all of the National Football League. You have good wide receivers such as Marcus Colston and guys like Lance Moore. And you look at their mid-round pick this year, Kenny Stills, who could come in and get some opportunities out of the slot for this offense. They've got a running back by committee that I think sometimes is more of a hindrance than a help. They, a lot of years, have a lot of running backs, but they don't have that one real feature back, which is something I think that they've been missing over the years. It's too much. We could go to Pierre Thomas here, or we could go to Mark Ingram here, or it used to be when Chris Ivory was there before he got sent off to the Jets. We'd go to Chris Ivory, or we'd go to Darren Sproles. All of these guys. That's not necessarily a good thing. It may look like it on paper, but at times I think it hurts the Saints a little bit because they never really get into a rhythm with any one guy. And at times they lack a physical identity on the offensive side of the football, become too reliant upon Drew Brees in that passing game to move the ball and score a bunch of points, making them somewhat one-dimensional even on offense. Now, to me, the offensive line is still a big question for the New Orleans Saints. I watched plenty of Saints games last year, and they really struggled at times to keep Drew Brees upright, to protect him, to give him the time to throw. I think a lot of his interceptions, frankly, came from having to force the ball into tight windows because they had a little bit limited, amount of time to make decisions. Jermon Bushrod is gone. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I don't care what anybody says about him making 2 straight Pro Bowls. If they think that Jermon Bushrod was a Pro Bowler after his play last year in New Orleans, I got news for you. Your definition of a Pro Bowl player is ridiculous. Defensively, so the offensive line, is going to be important to watch because you're going to have to protect Drew Brees. You've got to give him time for him to go through his progressions, go through his reads, and be able to effectively spread the ball out in that high-powered Saints offense. Defensively, this team switched to a 3-4. Something needed to happen because their defense was incredibly god-awful bad last year. It really was. And you look at them this year, and you kind of sit there and say, well, they drafted Vaccaro in the first round. You've got other guys, young guys, switching positions in the scheme that could have some type of an impact like Cameron Jordan and Martez Wilson, what have you. This is not a good Saints defensive unit by any stretch of the imagination. It's definitely going to be the weakness of this team again this year, and is what's going to lead the Saints to have to score a lot of points most times in order to win football games. And that's not usually a recipe for long-term success in the NFL throughout the course of a 16-game regular season. I think the Saints are going to finish last in that division. I think they may win 6 games, perhaps 7. I don't want to totally dismiss him because as long as you have Drew Brees, you do have a chance because he is that damn good. The problem is that you can't stop anybody defensively, and at times they can't slow down enough on offense to control the clock, control time of possession, control field position via a more established, consistent running game. So 6 wins, maybe 7. They're also paying the price in part for having a couple of poor drafts in recent years. In terms of games you want to watch for the New Orleans Saints, look at Week 2 at Tampa, Week 5 at Chicago. Those are just 2 examples of games early on in the year. If the Saints can win one or both of those games on the road, it might bode very well for them, and it might indicate that they are a bit of a sneaky surprise player in the NFC playoff picture. I don't think they're going to win either one of those games, and that's why I'm picking them to finish last in this division, winning 6 or 7 at the very most.